Okay, so I just saw something really weird that kind of messed with my brain. I saw a tweet from the politician AOC, love her to death, great policies, generally speaking, but she said, and this rotted my brain, this was terrible for me. She said incel in a tweet. She called another political figure an incel, like as a slur. And this really bothered me, not because I have something in favor of or for incels. I'm not a fan of those people in any way. But what bothered me about this tweet was the fact that she said it, was the fact that a politician uttered that word. And that really bothered me because the internet and its lingo should not be in the mouths of the common folk, the people who are generally disconnected from the internet. Those people shouldn't be logging on more and getting more on the internet and influencing and changing its culture. And politicians certainly shouldn't be participating in that process either. I think the internet was at its best when it was a loose collection of losers, loners, and weirdos, and those people kind of defined what the broader internet culture was. Those people were responsible for it. I think the internet was a better and more fun place when that was the case. At that time, I'm talking in the early 2000s, the political makeup of the internet had a strong libertarian bent to it, and also a pretty strong lefty bent. People were talking about Noam Chomsky and all the radical activist figures. People were very in favor of piracy as a kind of political talking point, as well as hacking as a way of bringing power back to the people and exposing what the powerful are really doing behind closed doors. And it's not that hacktivism or libertarian sentiments aren't still well represented on the internet. It's more that those sentiments and that kind of behavior don't make up the internet. They're not a hegemonic force in its culture. And I think that's a terrible thing. I think the fact that when you go on the internet now, you can basically go to any of the main major sites and then find a little hub, a little echo chamber for your beliefs and your ideology. The fact that you can go find that is kind of existentially terrible. Like it's sort of a terrifying concept for me as a denizen of the internet who is very attached to this older way of doing things, because what it means is that the internet has kind of supplanted the meat space or real life for everybody at this point, right? Like everybody's on here. They're all engaging in internet culture, and they're also having an impact and an influence on what internet culture even is. And so they're bringing a lot of their customs and traditions from the socially successful, highly extroverted culture that they come from in the meat space, and they're bringing those standards and values onto the internet and trying to dictate what the rest of us believe and follow. And of course, there's always going to be the outliers and the loners in their own little spaces, but their influence and impact on the internet, again, is not this hegemonic force that all of the memes, follow and are dictated by. Instead, there's this obsession with one's looks, with one's status, with one's job, and these like bizarre things that only really matter out there. They're bringing all of those prejudices and beliefs and standards onto the internet to impose on the rest of us, the weird loner internet denizens that traditionally had made up internet culture. I think that's a terrible thing. And moreover, I think the fact that they are now co-opting and adopting language that was at one point created by those people, people like us, the weirdos, the loners, the fact that they're co-opting that language and then using it for their own purposes, I think only embodies and exemplifies this exact problem that I'm talking about. The internet was a better and freer place back when everybody was running their own websites, back when you did have some centralized places to communicate, like AIM, like forums, like IRC, but they were not so few in number, like they were more spread out. And when you were kind of a nerd just for using a computer. Like, if you go back far enough, literally having a computer and being on the internet, unless it was for some highly paid job or something like that, made you a loser in people's eyes. Like, it made you less cool if you were a known internet user in common, normal, average social circles. And so, of course, the people who were actually on the internet communicating on there had a very different philosophical and political makeup when all of them had been kind of estranged from the more normal social groups, right? They had been kind of estranged from them simply for being internet users, internet denizens. An internet full of people like that is going to look very different, and did look very different, than the internet of today, which is full of, your average person, your average people. And I think this basically happened because of the profit incentive. Like, I'm talking about the problems and why I dislike this, but why did it actually happen? Well, of course, social media companies, like any company, is incentivized to maximize profits. But the only way to really do that is to maximize your accessibility and your appeal to the common denominator, the most general of audiences. And of course, the way you do that is by simplifying your features, implementing content moderation policies that adversely affect people of certain ideologies or proclivities, implementing very usable, bland, banal, annoying features that sterilize the experience and the interface as to not offend any particular group, implementing algorithms that are intended to keep you on the website forever, and so on. Obviously, if you're on those websites nonstop, other websites are going to die out. There's going to be no real incentive to click off and go elsewhere online, because you are literally being drip fed content that you find in the moment pleasurable to look at. And this content is going to it's going to dissuade you from going elsewhere, because for you it's all already there. They did all this to maximize their appeal. And of course, at least back when ads were more worthwhile online, this maximized their profits. It also brought a lot of new users on the internet, which was, of course, part of their goal to maximize profits. And unfortunately, this logic of capitalism kind of ruined the internet, because it made it cool for a bunch of people who, to us, are not cool, to be online. And then, of course, they started adopting the memes and language of internet culture, which was prior to this dictated by people who did not follow the crowd and did not come from the same, that weren't cut from the same cloth, so to say, as these other people. And now we're in this strange situation where you have a popular politician using the word incel in a derogatory way. And of course, again, just to be clear, my problem isn't that that word is being used in a derogatory way. I use it in a derogatory way. But it's the fact that she's saying it. Someone of that much prominence and popularity and of that importance to political discussions in the US and legislation in the US, the fact that she's saying that, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And that's to say nothing of, as well, the increased prevalence of scams on the internet as more people have gotten onto the internet. I could go into a whole tirade about how increased internet access in, say, India literally corresponded to an increase in clickbait and scams that we now see as ever present on the internet, that were not as common online before or as great in number before. Now they're just everywhere. I could go into a whole thing about how the more Indians we got online as well, you know, came to do exactly that: post clickbait, post AI generated slop, post scams, run scams, for, of course, all of these internet novices, internet naive normies to lap up like dogs and have all of their money drained as a result. It's like these two groups getting online coincided with one another. You had, at the same time that you had first world internet naive normies coming on, you also had the internet scammer Indians coming on, who in many cases had a large incentive to try and make money in this way because they're in desperate situations. And all of that made the internet a much worse place, on top of just the endless mounds of retarded content produced by what is the socially successful common folk. Now, that isn't to say all of them are bad. You know, a lot of the more person savvy people who have come onto the internet have made incredible contributions to it. And so it's actually hard for me to say what I would rather have. Would I rather have the internet of today or of yesteryear? I don't know. The point more of this video is to express this kind of dismay or distaste that I have with this increasing proliferation of the internet and internet culture around the world. It certainly has some major drawbacks. And it makes me feel kind of weird, even though I don't even know if I would choose to go back to that time if I could, right? If I could choose to just press the reset button on all of this and go back there, would I? I mean, at times I've said absolutely or yes for sure, but these days, with as much content that is being created, because more of it is being created, there's bound to be more stuff that's tailored for you specifically. You just kind of have to wade through and ignore all of this other stuff. And in a way, nerd culture and loners could be receiving increased acceptance by the median person, and as a result, you know, more people could perhaps be converted over or brought into this weirdo type of culture, and these people could actually respect it and try and integrate themselves, assimilate themselves into it, rather than attempting to force all of us into their whole thing. I mean, just look at TikTok nowadays, right? Like, I don't go on there. I've never actually seen a TikTok of my own volition on the website. I've seen like probably less than 10 of them in total that were sent to me over Discord as clips, like as WebMs, back when I used to use Discord. But I've never actually gone on the website and watched videos myself. But what I hear is, on TikTok, there are a lot of these niche subcultures that are hugely popular. I'm talking people who promote the kind of in my room, like Denpa vlog type shit. I'm not saying the exact thing that I do or that I sort of pioneered in this space with no thank you, but like their own variations of the whole broadcast yourself philosophy that used to be really popular on YouTube. Nowadays, you have a lot of people online who are trying to embody that spirit and vision, And YouTube is recommending those videos right and left from these small channels that are just producing these raw lo-fi vlogs. Um, and it's great to see. Apparently, the push for that kind of content started on TikTok, and then people just brought it back over to YouTube. And that's a great thing, right? The interest in a lot of, weird, boogie, fashion sensibilities and beliefs and ideologies and interests, all of that is gaining prominence and being promoted heavily on TikTok. Older, more obscure, weird music is being promoted on TikTok, and it's coming over to YouTube. And that is kind of having this massive effect on the culture of Gen Z and Gen Alpha and how they relate to each other, and also how they relate to the internet and create content for the internet. I think this is a wonderful thing. Now, it has its drawbacks as well, but it also is already producing wonderful content for the internet. And it's already producing wonderful, accepting, kind, and open-hearted people who understand people like me a hell of a lot better than they used to. So am I just, angry and pissed at the state of the internet today? A little bit, but also not necessarily, And with every change that happens in this cultural moment, and I'm sure the next, there's going to be this positive and negative dynamic, this dichotomy. But I think the great thing about this moment today is that you can find what appeals to you and kind of stick to that. The drawback, I think, is for those of us who do want a kind of homogenous, nerdy internet that is decentralized in nature, with all these different websites of all these different people who are weirdos themselves. That is not going to be the internet writ large. That is not going to be the internet as we understand it. And there are going to be a hell of a lot more annoying, unempathetic people. But at the same time, with everyone online, we are given this tremendous opportunity to make our voice heard by a larger audience, and thereby receive more understanding from a greater number of people, and perhaps move them over to become more like us, to kind of de-normify society. And I think we are seeing that with the proliferation of these TikTok trends, for example, and we could see that even more. So is it, from an intuitive standpoint, from just like a visceral, like gut reaction, kind of weird to see that politician use that word? I mean, sure it is, but there is another side to this that could also be a tremendous opportunity, and I think that opportunity is already bearing fruit.